for us to lead the EU from within the belly of the beast for longer than I think he wished he had, and who is our much-loved Deputy Leader, and who is going to wrap up today's proceedings with what I think is going to be a barnstorm. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge welcome to Paul Nuttall.
Thank you very much, Conference. It's great to be back. Well, if some of the press were to be believed, then this hall was going to be half empty today, wasn't it? And if you read some of the stories, then UKIP was a dying party. It was the end of the road. Is it the end of the road, ladies and gentlemen, or is it just the beginning? Just think where we've come from in 5 years. At the general election of 2010, we got 900,000 votes and 3%. 5 years later, we have got 14% of the vote and 44 million votes in the bag. And what have we achieved in between? We've gone from single-digit councillors in 2010 to 500 councillors now today. In the meantime, we went out and we won a European election, didn't we, last year? We took 24 MEPs back to the European House of Nonsense. We became the first national party since 1906 that wasn't the Labour Party or the Conservatives to win a national election. It's a great achievement, ladies and gentlemen. And most importantly today, we forced the Prime Minister against his will to offer us a referendum on our membership of the European Union. I think we can all agree, ladies and gentlemen, can't we, that 4 million votes and 1 seat is nothing more than an unprecedented electoral disgrace, and if ever proof was needed that the first-past-the-post system is an outdated model designed for the past that should be consigned to the dustbin of history, it is this. We need electoral reform, ladies and gentlemen. It should be one person, one vote, and no longer should we have elections decided by 400,000 people who live in swing constituencies. Ladies and gentlemen, we need proportional representation. But of course, every cloud has a silver lining, and the silver lining is that referendum. It is the opportunity for us. It's a window that I believe we as a party must jump through. Politics is coming onto our turf. It is the reason why we were created in the first place, to get ourselves out of this organisation. And it is no time to sit on the fence. In politics, ladies and gentlemen, the early bird catches the worm. We must start campaigning, and we must start campaigning now. We must not wait for Dave's renegotiation. And by the way, what is he renegotiating? As far as I can see, it amounts to nothing. He's not calling for us to control our own borders once again. He's not calling for us to regain our own fisheries. And he's not even calling for a reduction in our membership fee. He will come back, ladies and gentlemen, and try to sell us a pup. We will not be fooled. We must begin campaigning today, because if we do, I genuinely believe we will gain momentum and we can win. That is why we should be thankful, conference, to Aaron Banks and the Leave.eu team. Please give them a round of applause. They've really put the money where their mouth is. These guys have brought together a disparate group of organisations who've campaigned against our membership of the European Union for 25 years now. Global Britain, the Democracy Movement, the Bruges Group, the Campaign for an Independent Britain. They are putting together an army of people of around 250,000 foot soldiers who will go out, deliver leaflets, knock on doors, hold street stalls, educate people and give good reasons why we would be better off out a corrupt, undemocratic European Union. So rather than us being a party of the past, rather than us being a dying party, as some in the press would like to see, this is our time. The next 5 years will make or break this party. As I said a few minutes ago, there is a window of opportunity that has opened. We will either jump through it or we won't. But I believe, with the hard work of our activists and the Leave.eu umbrella organisation, we as a party and we in this referendum campaign can go from strength to strength. Now let me please mention the migrant crisis. I know some in the press like to call it a refugee crisis, but it's not a refugee crisis. It is an economic migrant crisis, so let's start calling it what it is. And it's not just me saying this. Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, said that he believes that 95% of the people who are coming to Europe are not genuine asylum seekers, they're economic migrants. And indeed Eurostat, the European Union's own statistic gathering body, said that 85% of the people who are coming are not coming from war-torn Syria, they're coming from places like Pakistan, Albania, Afghanistan, Nigeria. These are people who are leaving poor countries to come to rich countries. They are not, in many cases, genuine refugees. Now, I've heard some people say today that UKIP's language on this issue is inhumane somehow. Inhumane. I tell you what, the most inhumane thing that's happened during this crisis was when Angela Merkel and the Swedish government said, the doors are open, everyone come, and all they've done in that time is they've encouraged more people to come and risk their lives and die in the Mediterranean and die in the Aegean Sea. Angela Merkel, ladies and gentlemen, should hang her head in shame. And I ask, what are the other countries doing outside the EU? And I specifically mean the rich Arab Gulf states. What is Saudi Arabia doing? Nothing. What is Kuwait doing? Nothing. What is the United Arab Emirates doing? Nothing. What is Qatar doing? Nothing. These countries have not even allowed in one single refugee, although Saudi Arabia has offered to build 200 Wahhabi mosques in Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be clear. There is no place on the continent of Europe for inhumane, illiberal, intolerant Wahhabism. And there is no place in this country And there is no place in this country for Sharia law, Sharia courts, where the word of a woman is worth half that of a man. Now please indulge me for a couple of seconds when I hop on my hobby horse. England. The Labour Party yesterday are talking about the need for an English identity. I believe that we should be the party that give the English their identity. I believe that we should lead and not follow. I believe that we should not be advocating a halfway house of English votes for English laws. It throws up more questions than it gives answers. If we want to save our union, the union we all love, the union that has given us peace and prosperity for 300 years, then we must give pride back to England. That means we must rebalance our union, and that means a real, fully fledged English Parliament for the English people. And I think I'm going to finish on Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, come on. Who on earth would have believed the day after the general election that the Labour Party would enter into a summer of self-indulgent self-flagellation and end up with a leader like Jeremy Corbyn? This is no working class hero, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we call a London trendy. Someone who is more at home, banging on about gender quotas, climate change and Palestine. Yes, it might get The Guardian excited, but I tell you what, it's not the hot topic in the pubs and working men's clubs of Doncaster, Liverpool, Hull, Newcastle, Dagenham or anywhere else. And he offers us a fantastic opportunity. The patriotic, old working class people will not go out and vote for a party which is led by a man who says nice things about the IRA, that wants to give the Falklands back to Argentina, and least of all, will not sing the national anthem. We as a party have an opportunity with the Labour Party led by Jeremy Corbyn to sweep to victory right across the board in working class areas. UKIP must position itself and make itself the champion of the working class here in Britain today. And we can start that next year in the Assembly elections in Wales, in the Assembly elections in Northern Ireland, at the Scottish Parliament elections, indeed in the London elections, particularly in the Outer Ring. People will flock to our cause if we are bold, if we straight talk, and if we tell it how it is. That's how we got here in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. We mustn't tone down our language. We mustn't change, because if we do change and begin to sound like the rest, then this party is finished, and I will never allow that to happen. So rather than this party dying or going backwards, we are on an upward trajectory. We can become the champions of working people. We can become the alternative to the Labour Party in the North and in the Midlands. We can become an alternative to the Tories in the home counties. Because as I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, UKIP isn't left, UKIP isn't right, UKIP isn't red, UKIP isn't blue. UKIP just doesn't go for the working class. It just doesn't get support from the middle class. UKIP is about common sense. We want to ensure that we put British people first. And nowhere more so than the best example I can think of is foreign aid. We're sending £25 million every single day out in foreign aid. We're giving foreign aid to countries that are richer than ourselves. Countries like Brazil, like China, like India. And what we're saying in UKIP is quite simply that is your taxation. And we shouldn't be sending foreign aid to countries that are richer than ourselves and don't need it, when 1 million of our own people last year were forced to go to food banks. That's our taxation. It should be spent here in our country. We're the ones talking common sense on immigration. Only a few days ago, it was announced that 558,000 people came to this country last year alone. That was up 24% on the year before. That is unsustainable, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot cope. It is driving down the wages of working class people, and the way it must be stopped and the way it must be prevented is an Australian points-based system where we have the ability to say who we want and who we don't want to come into our country. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a mammoth task ahead. The establishment will gang up against us. Your Mandelsons, your Blairs, your Richard Bransons of this world. They will garner their forces to ensure that Britain stays within the European Union. We must have the counter-arguments. We must have the people on the streets. We must educate people. We must get out there and campaign. And we must get cracking now. Because if we do, ladies and gentlemen, I genuinely believe 2 years from now, I will be on this platform and Britain will be free, more democratic, stronger, richer and better outside the European Union. Thank you.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.